You have entered the realm of dead air. For the next 2 hours, you will be transported into the world of the strange and the supernatural. You might not feel the need to cleanse your laptops or mobile devices afterwards. But it might not be a bad idea.
Bill, I know you're there in the wings, Bill. Oh, okay, then we just kicked on YouTube. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dead or Live on the Dead or Full Spectrum channel. It is our Sunday night show, and we are happy for you guys to join us for the next 2 hours in paranormal discussion, topics, and guests. And we have Ken and I are both exhausted for different reasons, but we'll get into that throughout the show. Tim Weisberg is going to be joining us, Spooky Southcoast, in just a few minutes here. And thank everybody again for being with us in the chat, all of our wonderful, dear viewers, listeners. By the way, yeah, we are simulcast with KGRADB.com. Why aren't they doing a BBC special about us, Ken? And I'll bring it up with Bill later on. KGRADB.com, KGRA on Facebook. You can also find us on Facebook, Dead Air Full Spectrum. Of course, on YouTube at Dead Air Nation. For those of us who are listening on KGRA, want to see our wonderful faces. You can find us on Twitter at Dead_Spectrum. And we'll bring this up again tonight. Our brand new Patreon page, Dead Air Paranormal, which those of you who have already joined us and are checking out the content in there, wonderful responses and remarks and comments. And we had a great opportunity to sit and chat with them on our town forum last Monday night. That was a lot of fun, Ken.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The best part about it was people who were in chat that normally greet each other were able to see each other face to face and come on and ask us questions and tell us a little bit about their comments. So it's nice to bring all you folks together in the community and let's talk to each other. Let's ask each other questions. So that will be held again tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And for Patreon members, you will get a studio link to come on in and join us. And those of you who decide that you want to sign up, you'll have an opportunity to do the same tomorrow night. There's a lot of great content on there. We have evidence clips. We've got some series that we're going to put on there, photographs. We're going to be doing some reaction videos shortly and some live investigations as well. So that's patreon.com/Dead Air Paranormal. So what does it cost? $3 a month, folks. You can't get coffee at Starbucks for $3 a month. So we're building this from the ground up, and we hope you will join us because I'm sure that you'll have a lot of fun in there. And it's only about a week old. So there's a lot more to go, a lot more to do. We'll have some guests in there from time to time, some surprises. So come and join us on Patreon. All the exclusive content, things you won't see. We're spilling the tea. We're dropping dimes on people. We're doing all sorts of stuff in there. So thank you for our subscribers who have joined, and let's build a community.
We are marketing sluts.
Yeah, you do what you do here. I'm tired tonight, dude.
Yeah, you've been a little busy this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend, 10 of us from Rise Up Paranormal went to Maine. We got back about 3 o'clock this afternoon and investigated the Admiral Peary Inn in Freiburg. Absolutely lovely place. And it was a great opportunity for everybody to get together in a social setting too, not just investigating, but just to get away. I like to call it a investigation. You can use that if you want. Copyright Ken DeCosta 2024. We had a couple of new members in the group, and it was a great way for them to get their feet on the ground to learn a little bit about everybody. Lots of laughs, some interesting things, some experiments, and it was a great way to spend a weekend other than the 18 inches of snow that fell there, but we managed to get out with our lives. And that's my story.
I wore shorts all weekend. It was a beautiful time down there. I don't put that in there. By the way, investigation, patent pending, trademark. So just keep that in mind. But we can talk, and we will be talking a little bit more about all of this after the top of the hour. But right now, because we only have him for our first hour, and it's always a privilege to have him join us. But Ken, if you'd like to do the introductions once again, please.
Absolutely. Tim Weisberg. Tim, we welcome him back because once in a while we love to have him on. He's a fountain of information, one of the most honest people in the paranormal, and got some great insights on all sorts of things. He is the creator and executive producer of Spooky Southcoast. It's one of the world's most popular paranormal radio programs and also one of its longest running. It's right up there, believe it or not. I'm going to say 16 years. Tim may come on and correct me. But he's also been the associate producer of TV's Haunted Towns and Ghost Asylum, as well as the writer-researcher for Ghost Stalkers. He's also the author of a book we'd like to talk a little bit about. Ghosts of the South Coast has contributed to books as Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting and publications such as Fate Magazine, one of my favorite. So you've seen Tim on Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, Most Terrifying Places in America, History Channel's Monster Quest, Bios Channel's My Ghost Story, Living TV's Conversation with a Serial Killer, and he's also been featured on the Weather Channel. Okay, I'm ad-libbing that here, but I don't remember the name of the show, but it was really good. It was really, really good. So Tim will refresh all our memories. Further ado, let's welcome in Tim.
I just realized we are right now competing against the Oscars that are airing tonight. So every time a guest comes on this evening, we'll have to do that. For an acceptance speech, Tim. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And it was Weird Earth, Ken. That's what you were thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. That was good. I really enjoyed that. I love those compilation shows where they're not procedural, but they kind of jump around, talk about different. I love those shows. I always have, back from the days of sightings and, even Scariest Places on Earth before it went crazy with Linda Blair. I love taking us around different parts of the world and the country, and kind of like my favorite thing to watch.
Well, I enjoyed making it. Full disclosure, I filmed everything for the whole first season in one day in a hotel room in Atlanta, and I was sick as a dog, but I made my way through it. It was like 12 hours of filming. And then they were like really excited about all this paranormal aspect of it that they were going to add in. And then when the season actually aired, they cut a lot of that down. And then when they made season 2 and beyond, they never contacted me again because they completely removed the paranormal side of things.
Right.
So,
whatever. The other thing is I sold you kind of short because that's an older bio, but there are a couple of other things that you've done since then. We'd love you to talk about because one was the Amityville thing that you can see on Tubi, I believe. When we had you not long ago with Steve DeShavi kind of breaking that down, but Tim is not a man to be idle at all.
Which I have been for the last couple of months, and it's been driving me crazy. I've been, I had surgery, so I've been forced to be home and just started to get back out and do a couple of investigations over the last couple of weeks. But the Amityville experience was one of my favorites because it was a case that I'd always been interested in, but I'd never really gotten close to the story. And the fact that they brought us in and let us be right outside the house and actually kind of conducted a little investigation right outside the house was huge. But I also really liked the approach that they had, which was not only to tell the history, not only to talk about the hauntings, but not to present a belief either way, and to also say we have to bring in what the next generation of this story is, which I was against at the beginning. I was like, oh, you're going to bring on TikTok people and social influencers. All they do is just copy the work that me and actual paranormal researchers have done. and then retell it in a spooky way and try to get, endorsement deals out of it while we get nothing. And it really opened up my eyes to how that form of information sharing is the next wave of how we keep these stories and these cases alive. So that's why I love working on that project.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit. I know we only got you for an hour, so let's do this because of your background. And when we've seen you do presentations, they're very varied, but you've done things like how to be a paranormal TV star and things like that. Some of them very, very tongue in cheek, very funny and entertaining. I wanted to ask you, as someone who is so close to the industry, how everything has evolved, because of course you had cable television shows and then we went to streaming. Excuse me. Now we're on the internet, and some of the things we see on the internet, be it YouTube or whatever, depending on who's doing them, are kind of network quality. Some of them are very, very well done. So I'm curious, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the evolution of this as it's moved on to all these different types of media.
Well, I think the biggest part is because the network shows became so homogenized in the way that they wanted to present this, that a lot of content creators took it into their own hands to say, no, this is how we want to tell the story. And if that means we have to just do it on YouTube or in another format to try to get it done that way, we will. And then what we've seen is we've seen the television networks or the streaming services become interested in it based on the success they've had in those formats and on those platforms. So it really has kind of given some of the power to tell the story back to the people who are actually researching it, as opposed to the people that just want to make good television. But what we're seeing now is none of the paranormal shows are getting renewed. If you see all of the stars that are the people that are the center focuses of these shows, they'll say, yeah, we're still waiting around. We haven't heard anything. Or in some cases, they'll say outright, we're not coming back, or it's not looking good. So because we are in that space now where the networks, for whatever reason, don't want to sink money into the paranormal right now, but the people who are fans of it still want to consume it, they're going out and they're finding it in those other ways. So for the last few years, it's been a struggle for those content creators maybe to get eyeballs, because they're still going up against these TV shows and streaming services. But now people are hungry for the content. They're just going to look and they're going to find it, and they're going to become fans and support through Patreon and things like that.
Yeah. What does that mean in an organic way for people who consume this, who are legitimately paranormal enthusiasts or interested or curious, or at times want to be educated about it, or even those people who want to live it vicariously through the people that are portrayed on the screen? How's that delivery system, and how's it working out to inform the public that has an interest in this? Because full disclosure, spoiler alert, we all understand there's an entertainment value to this.
I would say it's threefold. In one sense, there is the diversity of styles and presentation and investigation styles, and really people are getting to see that it's not just the 4 or 5 teams that had a TV show is the only way to do it. So they're getting to see more of that. The other part of it is they're getting a more interactive interaction with these shows, because these people that are these content creators are talking with them and bringing them and on board and taking them behind the scenes and giving them more of that access. The other side of it too, though, is it's kind of like a be careful what you wish for the people in the paranormal world that we're saying all the time, gee, I wish they would just make a show that was accurate. I wish they would just make a show that shows what really happens on a paranormal investigation. Because now, if you're going to do that and you don't get the viewers that you wanted, well, it kind of proves that TV was right. Viewers just don't want to see you sitting around for 8 hours in the dark waiting for something to happen. So it's a learning curve still to figure out what's going to work and how it's going to work the best. But I think it's going to be more, not that the TV shows, I wouldn't say were honest, but this is going to be a more honest portrayal of what the paranormal is, because you will see all of that diversity of style.
Yeah, I want to let George in here. One last thing for me for right now. How do you, because you do so many events, and you have anybody that's, aware of what you've done, hundreds. I'm probably selling that short, maybe in the thousands by now. How do you see the guests and the attendees right now in terms of their knowledge base, their approach? in comparison to, I don't know, let's say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the people who were attending these events, how have they kind of evolved in your eyes?
Well, I think they've certainly learned more about the styles and about the techniques. It's not just regurgitating what they saw in Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
The downside of it, though, is that as they're consuming more of these content creators, not all of these content creators are doing things the right way. So you do get a little bit of a filter of some of that coming in of, well, I'm going to do this. And hold on. We don't walk around this haunted place, this haunted home, this haunted residence, this haunted museum, whatever it may be, that was nice enough to let us come in here for the night and start telling their ghosts it's time to move on. Like it's, whatever these things are that they do, or challenging them, or, listen, we're just here to have an enjoyable evening in which we hope that something paranormal happens. And so I found that I've actually had to be a little bit firmer with people than I've had to been in the past. And no, we're not going to do that. No, that's not something that we should really be doing here. And I'm going to have to revamp my disclaimers and my rules on my events page, and just put all these things in there to say, like, you can't. This investigation is your investigation for sure. That's how I always run them. I'm just there to help you. But at the same time, we have to be respectful of where we are. And they didn't ask you to come in here. You're coming in there because they're letting you go in there. So there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out in that regard that people haven't been negative about. They're certainly receptive to it when I bring it up. It's just something that they didn't even think of. They never thought, oh, I shouldn't go into this house that depends on these ghosts as a way to bring people in to learn about the history and try to move them on beyond the house.
Adaptation. That's interesting. George?
Yeah, I sometimes wonder where we are at in the field as far as the three of us here. And, Ken was mentioning Spooky South Coast for 16 years. We've done Dead Air for exactly those same amount of years also, with a little bit of a hiatus some years ago. And I wonder sometimes whether or not our thinking is antiquated to today's media and what's going on out there. You mentioned about, asking the spirits to move on. We've been hearing about that since the inception of this field as a phenomena, since ghost hunters came out and people started picking up recorders and picking up flashlights and going out. And when they started to do residential cases, everybody's going to move on the spirits, so it's not a new concept. They may be bolder with regards to it, but now there is somewhat of a crossover confusion between an investigator and a content creator. That's only been in our world for maybe 3 years, 5 years. I think, since the pandemic, it really exploded. But you look out there right now, you take some of these content creators that are on social media, and they have way more viewers than they would have ever had on Sci-Fi Channel, on the Travel Channel. Even if they were approached by Hollywood to say, hey, we see what you're doing, we want to do it here. It's a cut and pay for these kids. It's not even worth it for them. And they're on multiple platforms drawing in this revenue from each and every one of these tiers so that they can rake in the money and add in the dramatics. Absolutely. Because we see it all the time. I'm sure you do as well, Tim. Those that are posting on, whether it be TikTok or whether it be on Facebook, their live investigation. And a lot of it is pretty mundane. And so when these kids come in and, they're adding in and dropping the music behind them, and they're, editing with a lot of quick shots and fear, and it's entertaining. It is entertaining. So, the contrast there is, are we as investigators or seasoned investigators, do we forget the fact that this is an evolution in the field, and that we either keep up or get left behind? What do you think, Tim?
And that I was resisting it for a long time. So we've been doing spooky for 18 years. So not to correct you guys, but
Okay, you win.
now that the show is a legal adult, I have to give it its due. So when we started doing it, we never would have thought of ourselves as content creators. We were doing a talk radio show. because
Right.
we're in the talk radio station on the air on AM radio, and the podcast was just a secondary thing that we were doing as part of it. And of course, then we went to YouTube and did videos and all that. But we never utilized that term. It wasn't a thing, content creator. But when you think about it, George, we've all been content creators since we started doing whatever our methodology is of sharing our views of the paranormal. So that's what we all do. The only difference is we didn't necessarily have full control of our platforms. I was subject to a program director on WBSM. If they ever decided, you know what, we don't really want this show on the air anymore, it would have got cut. I mean, now that's my job there, so it's the show is safe because I'm the one that makes that decision. But then at the same time, also, TV networks, we all know they've controlled so tightly what content gets out there. Now with YouTube, with TikTok, with Instagram, even Facebook, whatever it may be, the people that are creating this can decide what you get to see, and it's really the consumer, the viewer, the listener who has the ultimate say. And if they're saying that what these kids are doing is the way to do it, then I don't look at that as you or I or Ken have to evolve and do the same thing. I just look at it as that's a different technique that is bringing in a different fan base, and that what we really should be doing is finding a way to all work together. And that's why when I started overcoming my reluctance on these content creators, I started working with them. People like Amanda Millette, people like Becky Ann Galentine, and others to say, come with me and do what I do, and then we can also put it out to your people, and we can kind of get a little bit of that. And I think you've seen as more of us old school paranormal people have done that and embraced these content creators. Many of them doing it just because they want to get those likes and follows from exposure to their audience. But still, as they've done that, that's allowed for these content creators to see more of that paranormal investigator side of things. So we have more of a balanced mixture now, I think. So there's still going to be people that are going to be over the top, but there's always been horror movies for people that just want to get scared as opposed to people that actually want to learn about the paranormal.
Yeah, sure.
Who are we realistically to question their procedure and how they do it when, and believe me, Ken and I both feel very blessed that we've got over 3,000 subscribers to the channel versus some of those that have 3 million subscribers. They're doing something right, not to mention the fact they're a lot younger and cuter than I am. Ken's always been cute, so nothing he can deal with there. It's his curse. But we just we look at, again, and I'll be honest with you, aside from what Hollywood was evolving to within the field, let's get them younger, let's get them prettier, let's get them wearing this, and you don't see that as much. These investigators, when they get out there, sure, they're more theatrical, sure, they're more dramatic, and sure, they're attractive, but they're not really pushing or selling the sexuality. I mean, you can't beat a Scott Grunwald naked in an investigation. It's just never going to happen. So, I'm wondering again if it's just like they have tapped in to a market that we have either outgrown, or they've outgrown us, or it's something that we just have not figured out the methodology for yet.
Well, if you think about it, what we do, which is having long form, in-depth discussions about the paranormal, that's not what these consumers of these content creators are looking for. They want to be in the moment. They want to see something happen. They want to feel that thrill, and they don't need to have a conversation about it afterwards. And when they do try to have conversations if you've ever gone into the comment section of one of these content creators and seen like what they get and the hate they get and the negative comments they get, we wouldn't want that at all. So just remember, 3 million subscribers versus 3,000. You've got 3,000 people that really want to engage with your content versus they've got 3 million. And out of that 3 million, 2 million are just looking to pick on them and tell them that they're idiots. So it really is a different kind of way of living your life. And for us, we can kind of be the balance to that. So we're the sports writers while they're just the people who are, doing the fan base shows. And instead of being the yahoos that call the sports teams, we've got to pick up a new designated hitter. We've got to do that. Instead of being those people, we're the kind of the ombudsman who stand back and look over things and can kind of give that wisdom. So there's a place for each of us.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Hey, one of the things I wanted to ask you is that as an investigator, as somebody who's trying to learn more about it. And I know, you have the events, you have the radio show. What do you do to supplement that on your own in terms of locations you might go to, access you might request to just strengthen and evolve your own knowledge base about this? And because I'm sure, like everybody else, you have your questions as well.
I do, but for me, in recent years, because of the workload of my day job as I've progressed in that, I've done less in the paranormal. And so it wasn't really a matter of, oh, I could just go out at a moment's notice and go join on an investigation or, come by somebody's house because they think there might be something going on. So I've actually done less. But what I have done is when I have gone and had those opportunities, I've tried to make it more meaningful. So if it's something where I think that it might have a benefit later on where I can help these folks and say, we can bring in people to sell tour tickets for you, or we can get a spotlight on this, or I can share this with some of my friends that will feature you in their content, then I've tried to do that. But for me, I think, and I know this is going to sound terrible to say, but I think my questions have been answered, or at least they've been answered enough for me that I can make peace with where I'm at. And then I can enjoy the experience more when I do have it, as opposed to just being out there all the time plugging away at it. I would have been burnt out on it a long time ago. That's just the nature of my personality and how I am. I've done a lot of different things in my lifetime, and I some of them have fallen by the wayside, and that's just because I can only do something for so long before I realize that I've probably done all that I can.
Yeah. What won't you do? Without getting into specifics or anything like that, what won't you do? What is your criteria for someone who says we should ask him to get involved in this, whether it's a money raising thing, because I know you do so much of that for historic locations. But is there anything out there you won't do? What's the red flags for you?
Well, I won't do residential cases. And I know that that shocks a lot of people in the paranormal world, but my reasoning for it is, and you know this well, Ken, if you're going to do that, you've got to make yourself available for people. It's not just a one night thing and then you're done. You've got to be that support system for them. And my schedule doesn't allow for that. So what I'll do is I will pass it on to people that I work with and that I know and that I trust. And then I will, follow up and say, hey, how did it go? Or, maybe I'll even pop into the investigation, but I'm not going to be that point person for them because I just would feel like I'm leaving people high and dry too often. And then the other thing that I won't do is I really don't get involved in anything that's considered demonic because I don't have any kind of religious belief system or background. And I think I would be a detriment in that case as opposed to being somebody that could actually contribute something. So, many times people have come to me with one of those. I've turned that over to Keith Johnson or to Matt Moniz to bring to Keith Johnson. And Moniz will be like, hey, you've got to come out and see this. This isn't. And I'm like, nope, don't want anything to do with it because it's just better off that I'm not around. It's almost like, you don't want to have the person who doesn't believe in the mystic. I don't know how young the kids are that watch this show, but Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. You don't want the one person, the older kid that doesn't believe in that, spoiling it for the little kids. And I feel like that's what I would be. I'd be the one that's like, everybody else is wrapped up in the moment, and I'd be like, this is not what you think that it is. So I just stay away from it.
Yeah, those are thin ice situations too. There's no Easter Bunny, Judge. No, it doesn't exist. Crushed him.
I know.
Yeah. No, those are the thin ice situations. We talked about it ad nauseum. They don't need to hear from me again on this, but you start getting into the demonic, the negative cases. There's so many variables and ways to get yourself in trouble. And forget just empowering or emboldening something that may not be what it seems. Because, I do not pretend to be an amateur psychologist or anything like that. Those are the thin ice type of things. I know as far as residences, to me, there are far less that come to me. I speak for us personally. There are far less that come to us, and I suspect a couple of reasons for it. And one of those are the idea that people are getting this information and are going DIY on this type of stuff. They don't necessarily need, the experts to come in and tell them something because of the ability, or they think there's an ability to self-diagnose themselves. So I think I'm not speaking for everybody out there. There are far less phone calls. I mean, dramatically less phone calls about, residences and where you had some credible people who had some incredible things happen to them. But that dynamic has changed quite a bit. And I suspect it might be for that reason.
I think that's a big part of it. And I think the other part of it is that as people have seen this more prominently in the media, they aren't as afraid of it anymore. So even if they're not DIYing it themselves and trying to investigate it, they're comfortable with it. They're more comfortable with it than they might have been 15 years ago, where they can sit back and say, "Oh yeah, our house is haunted. Like it doesn't bother us, and it's fine," because their way that they view the paranormal has changed because it's just more out there in the zeitgeist. It's not this under a rock thing that nobody knows about anymore. And the other part of it too is I'm glad that a lot of these residential requests don't pop up anymore because it was getting really hard to weed through who actually needed help and who was just trying to get on television. And my whole approach is I stopped reaching out to anybody. I used to say, hey, if you need an investigation, reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with the right people. I stopped doing that when somebody asked me. They told me they were having a problem with their 3-year-old girl. It was a local case here on the South Coast. And I was like, well, I can't come out and help you, but I'm going to get my friend Christy Parrish, who is in the next town over, and she can help you out, and she's the best. And and trying to give them that assurance and that comfort that I thought that they needed. And they're like, oh, you can't get Amy and Adam to come? Because I think this would be a really good case for Amy and Adam. I was like, so that's what this is all about. You really just think that I'm going to get you on TV because of my friendship with Amy and Adam? So I was just like, I'm done. I'm not. If somebody reaches out to me and I do a little digging on them and I feel like it's worth passing, I just give it to Moniz or to somebody else and I say, I don't know that much about them, but they've asked me for help, so I'm going to pass it on to you.
You think you can get Amy and Adam to come on our show?
I don't pretend to make them be able to make them do anything.
I hear you there, brother.
Totally lost my train of thought, but referrals can also be. You got to be careful about those too. I mean, it can't just be back in the days when everybody was trying to build these nationwide networks. Remember when that happened, the TAPS network, and that was a big thing back then. There's been so many fads, but people are trying to build these nationwide networks to join to, I don't know, just sort of illuminate yourself as we have, and you don't know these people. You don't know their backgrounds. There's no background check. You don't know who you're getting involved with. Referrals can be something else too that can come back and bite you on the ass as well. So this is why all you folks out there that we build networks that are based more in friendships. There certainly is a skill set. There's certainly an approach and methodology that are important, but we tend to build them around people that we know and have spent time with, not only professionally, but socially and just had conversations with. So you can get a feel for them. It's not about building some kind of network nationwide. And, there have been some horror stories associated with that as well. So we're trying not to go there anymore. Hopefully, we did have, and I want to get you in on this, George. We did have. Where are we here? Got a comment from Eli Estrada. We were talking about YouTube until the debunkers come out and create unnecessary drama.
I think it's
this is something without going into the weeds. We all know what we're referring to. But I see now debunkers going after other debunkers. And you know how algorithms work. It's like watching streaming TV. You watch a show and underneath you might also like. So everybody wants to get a piece of that pie. If people are watching this or this particular subject, you go there, you get clicks and likes. That's how it goes. But what I've seen is like an Ouroboros over the last few months, where the paranormal snake is starting to eat its own tail, and it's kind of turning on each other for the benefit of ad revenue and clicks and likes and things like that, where people are being appropriated, shows are being appropriated for the benefit of somebody who just, for whatever, hey, listen, for whatever their reason, they get up in the morning and that's the object of their day. No judgments. I'm just saying that's calling balls and strikes here. That's how I see it.
Well, let's say somebody comes up with something that is a controversial technique, and that gets some exposure on the internet, and people start tuning in. People put out videos and they say, you've got to see what this team is doing. And then, you might get a few of those. And what happens with those videos? They don't really go anywhere. People are going back to the original video and watching that, and they're not really watching the people who are just sharing or repurposing what they were doing. But who gets all the attention? The people that come out and debunk it, the people that come out and say something negative with no basis of knowledge about what's actually going on. And one of the dirty things about algorithms is your own stature is based on if people with higher followings are interacting with you. So if you go on the page of somebody that has 5 million followers and you get into it with them and they're responding to you, the algorithm says, well, this person must be worthy to have caught the attention of this 5 million follower person. So let's elevate them a little bit and let's show their content to more people. So they're not going after you because they honestly think that something that you did wrong needs to be exposed to the world. They're going after you because it makes them look edgy to do it, and it helps them in the algorithm. It helps them get more exposure for doing so. So it's just as phony of an attempt to do something as they're claiming that the thing that they're criticizing is phony.
Ken, I told you we should have gone after Taylor Swift.
I know. There's still
that
time.
Will not go well for you. Do not do that. I've seen that happen. It will not go well.
It's like I would much rather go after a puma at this point, barehanded. Well, this is the way of the world, isn't it? You are a talk show host, radio talk show host, and you know what you sign up for, Tim. You get some callers, you have some fun, there are some regulars, and then you get people who will call into your show just to hear the sound of their own voice. Mm-hmm. And they will go past the idea of I disagree with you. They'll start getting into character assassination. They'll take it to a whole different level. It's not a new concept, but when you're in talk radio, this is part of the deal. It's what you sign up for, like I said. But there are some people who just aren't prepared for what might happen to them when they start to get a higher profile and maybe more likes and more viewers and more subscribers. As that climbs, it's not like, okay, I'm an actor, I get bad reviews, it's part of it. These are just like normal people who have gone out and put themselves out there, and all of a sudden everything just collapses on them. And and psychologically, mentally, emotionally, a lot of people aren't prepared for that. Just like a lot of people, Tim, aren't prepared for stardom when it comes to them. It's like their personality changes, or everybody around them changes, right? Everybody's so different. I haven't changed. Joe Walsh, right?
Well, one of the problems that I've seen is, and by the way, you perfectly described what I go through every Monday through Friday on my weekday show with having to deal with people attacking me. For the most part, we have good conversations, but there's always that, that one person that, can't agree with me on anything because we disagree politically or whatever it might be. But there seems to be, you mentioned actors, and I'll use that as an example. That's a community of people who can prepare you for what will happen. So when you are in a show and you get bad reviews, there are other people who have been in that business longer than you, who are part of that cast, part of that crew, who can explain to you like, hey, just let it, and they can be that support system for you. A lot of these social influencers and content creators don't have that. Like, it's just them themselves on their own, and they're not used to dealing with this. And when they go to their parents or loved ones and say, hey, why is everybody beating up on me? They can all they're going to say is, you're great, you're awesome. Why? I don't know why anybody would pick on you. And so you don't have an honest answer as to what you could be doing differently that might change the way people are looking at things, because not every time that somebody attacks you are they wrong? They're wrong to attack you. It should be discourse, not bullying. But sometimes they have a valid point. And the problem is too many of these folks just look at the hate behind it and they don't want to say, okay, maybe I should change things. Maybe I shouldn't say these things, or maybe I was wrong and I have to admit that I was wrong, or maybe I need to do better research. And instead, the minute you try to question any of that, you become a hater and you're a bully, and then all of their followers just attack you. That's why I don't comment on anything anymore in the paranormal. It's just not worth it.
Just to engage, it's generally the idea we're locked on a macro level. I mean, obviously, a lot of our social media interaction is people have to do with the paranormal, because that's how we've put ourselves out there. But let's not kid ourselves. This is politically, religiously, socially, economically, whatever that group is out there, they're killing each other too on the internet. So, you're not alone in just this. Politically, it's like, oh my God. I mean, oh my God.
And a perfect example of that is, how close I am with Stephanie Burke. Her and Scott Porter put out a TV series that was on Fox Nation. It's called Secrets of the Asylum. It was really well done. To me, it was one of the best paranormal shows I've ever seen in terms of the presentation and the information and the history, and knowing that they're telling the truth, and having been to Eloise myself now and seen it. It's really a great show. But there's so many people that had no interest in watching it, refused to watch it because it was on Fox Nation. We're like, okay, you don't have to give Fox your money. You can get a free 1-week trial and just watch all 6 episodes. They wouldn't even do it because it was on Fox Nation, when there was nothing political about that show whatsoever. It was just this network realized people like paranormal content, so let's have a few paranormal shows.
And it happens. And I often question people who are there to help people. So if you go pull into a driveway and they have a Biden Harris or a Pence Trump sticker, what do you do? Turn around and go away?
Right. Yeah. If
that overrides your help that you're trying to give.
But take it out of the political realm. How many times did you get a call from somebody that you went into their house and the first thing you saw on the wall was maybe a big crucifix hanging on the wall, or maybe they had a Buddha statue or something, and you realize, well, this isn't necessarily the same belief system that I have, but I'm still here to help them, and I've got to find a way to do that in the context of what they think. And it's actually easier to do it with something like political beliefs, because all you have to do is just not bring it up, and you'll be able to get through the investigation just fine. And that's where I think we have too many problems, is we make assumptions about people's character based on what they think outside the paranormal. Right. And I've always said, I don't need to think you're an idiot because of what you think politically. Enough people believe in idiotic things in the paranormal enough that I can just use that as my only basis of whether or not I want to work with them or not.
Here we are. George, what do you got? I have a question, and this is from NSPS TV Paranormal Podcast. Question, guys, those damn black-eyed children have been spotted out there in West Texas again. What do you guys think they are? The burning question. Tim, one of those black-eyed children out there in West Texas. What's going on out there?
My thought on black-eyed children has always been that there's something to this phenomenon, because I hear it happen even outside the paranormal world.
Really?
I hear it happen. Yeah, there's been news stories about it, of people, not necessarily the black-eyed kid description necessarily, but certainly with these issues. I think that it's probably some sort of entity, trickster spirit, something kind of representing itself as that. The other possibility is that as this has gained prominence in the zeitgeist of the culture, you probably do have a lot of teenagers that are like, let's dilate our eyes and put on black hoodies and go show up at somebody's door and knock on it, So there's probably some of that. But I think that there has to have been something to this in the first place to really get people as unnerved by these beings as they have been.
Here's the thing about it, though. There's a ton of homes nowadays. It's become commonplace to have a Ring doorbell, Blink, any of those different ones that you can buy out there now. And yet nothing's really been presented. If it has, it hasn't made mainstream to this point in time, any video out there to show the existence of this. I'm still on the fence about it. Whether or not this is an urban legend, no different than some of the other things that we hear about in this field, but don't really find evidence with regards to it. I would have to see, a little bit more eyewitness video or photography with regards to this to verify it. Unfortunate part, if they come at night and that Ring doorbell is on IR, then it's the eyes are going to be glowing anyway. So it's kind of hard to nail that, but be interested to see if more people are posting it out there. I'm just not seeing it on the mainstream.
The true believers, George, will tell you that the black-eyed kids are smart enough not to go to the houses with the Ring doorbells. So
of course, yeah.
They'll always find a way to explain it away.
Reinforced delusion, exactly.
Hey, I'll go a little ooby-dooby on this. With all these creepy pastas and Reddit stories and everything like that, and we've heard of, the Hat Man, the Slender Man, the Rake, the Black-Eyed Peas. No, I'm kidding. Black-Eyed Children.
List goes on.
Is this, Tim, is it possibly a tulpa situation where consciously we tend to create these things because, it's fascinating whether they're in the physical realm or psychologically, but the collective consciousness, it's almost like the power of prayer. Everybody focus on one thing. So I'll go a little off the beaten path here. If you got a thought on that, if we're creating these things in our physical realm to some degree.
We absolutely are. I mean, I'm a big believer in the idea of tulpas and thought forms. I think a lot of the hauntings that we investigate, especially the historic places, this is something that we've created and we've forged ourselves. But I also think that there is an intelligence out there, an intelligence that kind of exists outside of us that uses our fears against us or our beliefs against us. So if we're going to talk about things like Hat Man, well, it's going to appear to us as Hat Man. And I think part of that is that it will manifest in that way. And I think part of that too is we've heard so much about Hat Man. When we see a shadow on the wall, we're looking to see, oh, is there a hat? Oh yeah, that's kind of a hat right there. So we kind of do reinforce that confirmation bias with it. But I honestly think that there is the ability to think about it like this, right? There are kids that have had dreams about Freddy Krueger that have no idea what Freddy Krueger is, but they've never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but they've heard people talk about it, so they have nightmares about Freddy Krueger. We put something out there, we give it that power, we make it strong enough, people are going to have experiences with it.
Yeah. Speaking of Freddy Krueger, just a plug on, if you haven't watched Dynasty yet on Apple Plus TV, on episode 8, Scott Pioli compares Tom Brady to Freddy Krueger. So you got to see that if you haven't seen it. I highly recommend it. Basically, it's like he's like freaking Freddy Krueger. He's going to come and get us. We just hope he doesn't get all of us.
To which I yelled at the TV. I just yelled at the TV. You just called Tom Brady a murderous pedophile? But I don't think that's what he had in mind.
Well, Tim, we have a little thing here we like to call 7 dumb questions. And before we let you out of here, you're not off the hook. So we're going to give you 7 questions that may or may not make any sense, but we don't care because it's our show. We'll do whatever we want to. So, ladies and gentlemen, we present. All right, here we go with question number 1. Tim Weisberg, what's one thing that you wish you knew 5 years ago?
I would say I really wish that I had known what to invest in with the stock market. 5 years ago, I first started looking into it, and I was like, I think I could do this. And I put it aside and put it aside and put it aside, and I could have been pretty well off based on the investments that friends of mine have made. So I know that's a pretty mundane answer, but I'm also very broke. So that's the first thing my mind goes to.
Oh, I wish I would. In 1980, I wish I would have sent $100 to Bill Gates working out of his garage. It's like, here, use this, buy sandwiches or something.
I wish I just kept my toys from 1980.
Holy Jesus, man. All right, our next question. What sport do you think is the most boring to watch?
Oh, boy. I mean, I'm going to take some flack for this, but soccer. I never find it interesting. I'd rather watch golf. I'd rather watch tennis. I just can't do soccer. Yet I love Ted Lasso. That had just the right amount of soccer action in it for me.
I don't know. I played soccer,
Gee.
was offered a scholarship. You know, I was more of a baseball guy, but I still can't figure out what offside is. And I don't think anybody can. All right. This is an important question. Who's your all-time celebrity crush, Tim?
That's really difficult. I've had a lot of different ones over the years. But when I was married, my joke crush, you always have that, who would you cheat on me with if you got a pass?
Yeah.
I joked with my ex-wife that it was Kelly Clarkson. And she was like, okay, fine. If you meet Kelly Clarkson, you've got a free pass. Thinking, you'll never meet Kelly Clarkson. And then I started covering the Boston Celtics. And guess who was there one night singing the national anthem? So guess who I took a photo with in the dressing room before the game with my arm around her. Here you go. I sent it to my wife, and she was like, no, I was only kidding. So
This is happening. This is happening. All right. Another very important question. Who would win, Superman or Baby Yoda?
Superman, no doubt.
You think so? Even with the power of levitation, Baby Yoda. Don't underestimate the Yod. Next up, what will people be nostalgic for 50 years from now? Is there anything that people will look back on fondly?
I can't think of anything, honestly, that people will say, oh, remember how much better this was? I mean, so maybe not 2024, but I think 50 years from now, people are going to be nostalgic for the peak TV that we just came out of. They're going to be talking about the shows that we had the same way, people talk about I Love Lucy these days.
No, 50 years from now, the nostalgia will be, can you imagine and remember when people used to use their thumbs on their phone? Because everything's now going to be through their brain.
Okay, next question up. What do you think the first person to milk a cow was actually trying to do?
Listen, cows can be very standoffish creatures, and if that's what you've got to do to make them your friend, I totally understand what he was trying to do. He was just trying to say, "Hey, come on over. Let me show you what I mean." Now, here's the thing. Who was the first person to figure out that you could do it to a cow but not to a bull? That's the person I'm more worried about.
I think you just slayed that. You just absolutely slayed that, Tim. And finally, how would you prove you're from the future if you were transported 200 years into the past?
I would show them I would let them experience my propensity of hygiene. When they realized how good I actually smell, they'd say, there's no way you're from around our time.
200 years. Okay. So
it smelled bad back then.
Was there organized baseball back then? 200 years.
No, not quite yet. No.
So I couldn't predict the World Series. It might take a while. I'll either be able to predict something or I'll be dead within 20 minutes of arriving there. It'll be like Ash from The Evil Dead, I'd
be like, someday you're going to have this room in your home where you do that same thing that you go to the outhouse to do, and you're going to be totally fine with it. And they're going to say, no way. But there's even little pieces of paper that you can use to clean yourself afterwards.
Right.
It'll be
good, bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
Yeah. The interesting part is I just started watching the show Outlander. It was recommended to me, and it's one of the first things that the woman who goes back 200 years, funny enough, talks about is the smell. We did the same thing when Andrew and I wrote In a Flicker. But take it from a paranormal perspective, Tim, if you went back 200 years, what piece of paranormal equipment would you bring with you?
I think probably a voice recorder would be the most beneficial thing 200 years ago. Because you've also got to think of something that's self-contained. You can't bring a DVR system because they don't have they don't have electricity to power it.
Batteries.
Yeah, well, I bring batteries too.
Oh, okay, an addendum. Okay, yeah, I was going to say the same thing. You
it would have batteries in it. You might only get as long as those batteries last, but at least you could try it out.
A solar recorder.
Dowsing rods.
Which is not that well. They're probably already there at the time. That's the one thing. Tim, we are almost out of time here before we get to the top of the hour, and Erin Bush is going to be joining us live from the Conjuring House, the farmhouse, here at the second hour. But Tim, I want to. What do you got there?
I'm wearing my Conjuring House shirt.
Look at you.
Rocking the
Way
sweat.
too big on me now, but
Tim, by the way, tell us before you leave about this transformation, because folks around here are so proud of you and admire you, and man, you look great.
thank you. Yeah, I've lost about 80 pounds with probably another 20, 25 to go. I was using that Manjaro, so that's really what's helped me, but that's made all the difference. And had a couple of surgeries along the way too that probably helped me lose some weight too. But I feel great, and the next time I go out there and investigate with everybody, they're going to say, "Where's the rest of you?" So,
it takes willpower. I can tell you. Was it 2 months ago? I was diagnosed with high blood pressure and diabetes, and I've already beat the high blood pressure. They took me off the medication this last week. So, if you're determined, you can perform miracles with your body, and you are a walking, talking miracle right now, Tim, and we're so glad to have you with us here. Tell everybody where they can check out your show. By the way, Spooky South Coast. I'm in Florida. Aren't I the South Coast?
it's been a debate for years. 18 years, we've been fighting with people about where the South Coast actually is, but it is the South Coast of Massachusetts. You can catch it at SpookySouthCoast.com and wherever you get your podcast from. We've been on hiatus for a while because of my health issues, but we should be coming back in the next few weeks. And of course, you can listen to me every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on WBSM, WBSM.com, and the WBSM app.
You travel to some of these events also still? I know you're getting taking a hiatus, but anything coming up in the future here that you have plans for?
I'll definitely be at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash in July. I'll be at the Michigan Paracon in August. And I just got booked today for one in September that I'll wait for them to reveal, but it'll be a fun one to be back at. So there's a lot going on. And if anybody wants me to go, just reach out to me, Tim@SpookySouthCoast.com. I'm always happy to travel.
Tim Weisberg, always a joy to have you join us on the show. Right. And we'll keep doing it until you finally give in and get us Dan Aykroyd to come on. So we're gonna work that angle.
I'm trying to get him on my show. I feel you on that.
Yeah, no kid, right. Thank you. It's like until the restraining order comes, we'll stay on it. Right?
Tim, you have yourself a pleasant evening. I know you've got work to get to, and get some rest. And we'll talk to you soon again, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Say hi to all, Tim.
All right, guys, we're going to be at our break. When we come back on the other side, we'll be talking live from the Conjuring House with Aaron Bush. Stay with us. You're watching Dead or Live on the Dead or Full Spectrum channel. We'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake, Kicks.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Back in 2014, I was on my 14th visit to the old ghost town north of Ocala called Kerr City. There, in an experiment at the father's house, I stepped into the second floor closet where in the past we had experienced portal activity. With 6 little words I spoke in that closet with the door shut, my life became a living, sleeping hell. Show me where you come from. From that moment, the demonic onslaught of subconscious attacks as I sleep still manifest after 10 years. Visions too horrible and personal to repeat, with no end in sight. I am convinced that the closet in my own bedroom also possesses a portal. In my attempt to contact and rectify these night terrors, I am aware of the risk and consequences in my actions and only hope I could finally be at rest from this torment. Join me as I discover the skeletons in my closet. We are up and running. And I tell you what, I've got the first 2 episodes are out there at this point in time, Ken, and some great responses to it. We've got a bunch of different things that we're putting and promoting out there, are we not?
Yeah, we are. About a week ago, a little over a week ago, we decided to take that plunge into Patreon. It helps the channel. It helps us. It helps help us survive, keeps us afloat. We strongly encourage you, if you're so inclined, become a member, because we have a lot of exclusive content with a lot more to come, and we've talked about it. You're going to see evidence, video clips up there of Rise Up investigations of things George done, like the best of what we do, where you can comment on it. Reaction videos are coming. We're going to have tutorials about different facets of the paranormal. It could be equipment reviews. It could be the actual conduct of a paranormal investigation, what we feel is the right way to go about it, and we'll get into the nuances of that. In digestible bites, we're not going to, give you 2-hour tutorials, but 2 minutes here and there where we answer some of your questions. And of course, on Monday nights, we're going to continue our paranormal town hall, where we have you, the membership, come in and join us here live on screen. In a recorded format. It's completely uncensored, completely private, where we tell you a little bit about the ins and outs of what we feel about the show and give you an opportunity to join in. And most importantly, meet each other in person. Jeff Hilton, there's a member. Jeff was on and he joined us last Monday. Hi, Deborah. So please consider joining. Patreon.com. And this is going to be 8 p.m. on Mondays, every Monday. Hey, Roy Ron, thank you. And we'll go an hour. We'll start with an hour. Last week, I think we went closer to 2 because there was just a lot to talk about. So we're there. We avail ourselves of you. We may have some guests come on, but we'll talk about some things that are maybe a little more sensitive. And we'll give you the inside story on those things. Thank Jeff. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun to see you all. So that's patreon.com. Most importantly, how much? $3 a month is the pledge. For $3, you have access to all of this stuff. So consider joining our little Dead Air Nation here, all you Dead Air heads out there, and you won't regret it. It's a lot of fun doing it.
You could join for $3 a month, or you can save that $3 and get a cup of coffee at Starbucks in June. So
without whipped cream.
Without, yeah, just
That'll
plain, so you understand. I am in the middle of making a full-length motion picture for the Patreon channel. You didn't even know that, did you?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't sound too excited about it. Oh, I'm not either. It's fine. But yeah, and I'll probably be doing a third edition of Skeletons in George's Closet this week. And I've got all the equipment necessary now to do the Crossing Wires series, which is incorporating both the Shack Hack and the Frank's box that I have to see whether or not that could develop into something really, really bizarre and weird. Don't forget, Frank Sumption designed these boxes initially for contact with aliens. So I'm curious to see how that dynamic works between the two. So stay tuned for all of that, guys, but you can't see it unless you're a Patreon member. Make sure you do check it out.
I just noticed something in chat. Do you notice some of our regular viewers are joining us now?
Yes.
You forgot to turn your clocks ahead, didn't you? Fess up. Fess up.
It's like, if the analog clocks just you can't make it happen. You've got to have digital nowadays for everything. But anyway, we're putting this off because it's going to be scary. She's at a location that we're all terrified to visit, but at the same time fascinated with. But Ken, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest at this time?
It's Erin Bush, ladies and gentlemen, from the great state of Florida. She is a regular contributor. We love to have her on. She brings a different perspective. And my understanding is that Erin is going to be doing some things on Patreon for members only. She's going to be, well, we'll let her fill you in on what exactly that she's interested in. She's coming to us live from the House of Conjure.
The House of Conjure, yes. If my volume is bad, I don't have earbuds tonight, so
great. Awesome.
We're working with what we got.
It's awesome. So how was your day, dear?
Did you write your name on the wall yet?
Nah, it's kind of not my thing.
I can't do that anymore.
No, they don't let you do that anymore. Had a chance and didn't take it a couple of years ago. So, here we are. But all of these signatures are all over the place. They're everywhere. So,
excellent.
How's it going?
It's going well. I talked to you earlier, threw myself on the mercy of the court, as I usually do. Erin, we need a thumbnail. And all those great thumbnails you see on Dead Air, Full Spectrum YouTube are the creation of this woman, Erin Bush, who's using artificial intelligence and even unartificial intelligence, or in my case, horrible intelligence.
Mine too, horrible intelligence. Yeah.
Creates these wonderful thumbnails. And graphics that grab. So we appreciate that. We do. So how has the house been?
It's been good. It's been busy. We had a lot of tours this weekend, so looking forward to a couple of days just to kind of decompress, do some organizing, and it's my first time here alone. So we have a group here tonight, but I've not been the caretaker alone. I'm usually up here for the bigger events, Halloween and camping, things like that. So this is my first week as the caretaker alone. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like to be in the house when it's not crawling with people all the time. So I'm excited, Bean and I made the big move from the camper to the staff quarters today. So
nice.
Oh, promotion.
I also wanted to mention this hat that I'm wearing.
Oh yeah, your sweet hat
is courtesy of Erin's husband, Jay. And I found out today it's salmon colored.
Oh, is that the official term we're going with?
That's the official term. Cody Desbian labeled. I like that. The salmon color.
Fair. Salmon's good. I like it.
Beach or I don't know. I'm a guy. It's a guy thing. If it's not blue, I don't know what the hell to call it.
It looks nice. It fits perfect.
It does look nice.
It's pink.
He kept saying it was pink, and I'm like, no, it's not pink. It's not peach. It's red. But now we're going with salmon, so I'll go with that. I'll default to
Cody Desbian, the auteur of fashion, calls it salmon. So I'm going to go with that.
I like it. Makes you sound hip.
I like it too. Sounds cool.
This should be his new title, The Man of 1,000 Hats, because I
also true.
Every time he's wearing something, it's something new.
I got a bunch of them.
Yeah,
it's extremely strange. I try to wear different color hats, so they think that I'm doing it on different nights.
Right. Back to back.
Yeah, right. It's like I'm just here. I got another one ready to go. If you haven't seen the April Ghost, Doris Graveline, what's wrong with you? It's a great story. God, folks, stay with me here.
Well, Aaron, how was the ride up, and are you coping with such a different climate change from down here in Palm Coast, St. Augustine?
Ride up was good. I did stop on the way up in Connecticut somewhere. Got a great room at a Holiday Inn Express for like $99, so that was a win. Spent a day and a night with Ken and Dawn, and got to see Cody and Satori, and had a bit of a little family dinner, which was nice. And then we spent about an hour and a half down in Ken and Dawn's basement tearing apart Dawn's bottle collection. That was fun. And yeah, it's been nice. I think it's kind of the temperature. I love the cold weather. I hate the heat. And I was just looking at the weather a little bit ago, and it said that we're supposed to get snow around 10:15. And if that happens, I'm going to lose my mind, because I love snow. So even if it's for like 30 seconds, I will be standing outside the front of the house with bated breath, hoping for just like a little bit of snow. So I'm enjoying it. But we've had so much, hey, Tom, we've had so much rain. The river behind the house, of course, in the South, we'd call it a creek, not a river, but raging. Like you can hear it at the house. So we've had a lot of rain. There's a lot of water. It's a new moon tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what our investigators in the house are getting. And then we also had the time change too. So there's a lot of things that could be interesting for them.
Whitewater rafting with the ghosts.
A new experience we need to think about.
Always thinking.
Always thinking. But yeah, it's nice to be back. It's always good to be here. I always feel like it's I get to learn something new every time I'm here. And I think I've been here enough now where I'm hoping that, you know, I do think there's a period of time where they have to adjust to you. You know, you're like the new kid. And so I'd like to think at this stage of the game that we're good as far as that goes. They know they can trust me, things like that. So I'm excited just to see what the week looks like. And, you know, we'll just kind of see how it goes. Yeah. Nothing super exciting to report I can think of.
Well, calm is good. Calm can be
calm is good. That's exactly. So, but it's just always nice to come here and you know, to get the chance to give people tours and just really get them to see how much we love the place, and then make other people fall in love with the place, and also get them to realize that it is not crawling with demons. It's a nice, comfortable place. Sure, can it be a bit startling? Yeah. Don't tell people that, they're going to come. Trespassers are kicking up, so if I have to hop out at it, that's why I keep looking over here at the cameras when I hear a car go by. I know Cody and Satori do the same thing. But it's getting to be spring break time, so we're starting to get more traffic of people coming by the house late at night. Good. So yeah, it's good.
No, not good.
No, not late at night. No, it is kind of fun to startle them, not on purpose, but they're not expecting a person to come out and shine a flashlight in their face and tell them to keep on driving. So
you've got the hair. You could come out with like the girl from The Ring.
From The Ring, just like put my hair away like this.
Throw it over your face with the white, you know. It'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. That's definitely something I think I should try. That would be hysterical. I just need a white dress. I'm sure there's something in here with a costume that might work for that. So it's just good to be back.
Give me your impression in the times that you've been there, and again doing the tours, the expression of people's faces when they first come in. Is it fear? Is it wonderment? Excited? You know, or some people just downright grounded, and you can't really read them. What's the general consensus getting in there for the first time to the Conjuring house? Pretty much.
Not usually that. I would say overall, here's our first trespasser. I would say overall people are generally really excited. I think wonderment's also a good word for it too. And then you do on occasion get some people who are pretty scared, but by the time it's done with, I think they feel a lot better about the place, because of course for most people they've seen the movie. They haven't necessarily had a chance or wanted to do a lot of research. So they come in with the mindset of the movie. And I think for us, one of our goals is to really get people to understand that it's not like that. And it's, can it be startling? Can it be scary at times? That can happen, but I think it's more from a startle perspective. I mean, you could be standing in the staff room and hear furniture being dragged and there's nobody in the house, footsteps, things like that. But I think for people's first experience overall, it's excitement and wonderment. And some people, they've been planning this for ages. Like they're just stoked to be anywhere near the place. And that I think is what I love the most, is to get other people to fall in love with it as much as the staff really does love the place. Yeah.
How does the farm, the staff that work there, cope with the overloaded amount of social media sites that are out there that are going to the Conjuring House and looking for the deepest, darkest events to take? Case in point, one of the most popular ones out there, they went out to the woods, and they were absolutely sure that there was something out there trying to get the girls, and does that question get raised with you? Do you have to kind of quell that and say, well, be careful, but it's probably not going to be a situation you have to deal with?
I think we've done a good job of now, because of course, at the end of the day, the goal for everybody on staff is to protect the house and protect the spirits, and then also to protect each other on staff. And so I think we've got a really good system in place where we have, the content creators coming out. They're required to send us their videos ahead of time so that we can review them for historical accuracy, things like that. Make sure people aren't like trying to flip tables and run around the house screaming demon, things like that. But just to make sure that people get the house right. Now, of course, if somebody is investigating and demon comes through or something like that, we're not messing with people's evidence, but we want to make sure the house is reflected as the history, as we know it, between the history of the house, the history of the parents, to make sure that that is reflected accurately. And I think a lot of the content creators, the bigger ones, are starting to realize that the demon card's a bit played out. One, because we don't have them here. Do we have a negative entity in the basement? Sure. We can't deny that there's not a negative kind of thing that does happen in the basement. We do tell everybody that on the tours, but we don't really give that much attention. And I think that the YouTubers are starting to figure out that, one, we're not going to put up with that anymore. And that if you're not going to represent it accurately, that there's repercussions for that. So, for us, it's really, we've drawn a pretty firm line in the sand about how that gets handled, or we've tried to, and they've been respectful of that. And I think that helps shape the narrative. And I know for us, a lot of times we try to tell them, like, you guys have, maybe 1 million, 15 million viewers, subscribers, whatever that looks like. You have to remember, when you're here, these people that watch you are emulating what you do. Right. So, and for us, we're a very small staff of people. And, it's important to us that we're not getting bombarded with people who are on a demon hunt. It's just not accurate. It's not fair. It makes more work for us. And it certainly offends the spirits of the house. Hey, Candace. I think a lot of times when people start getting a spirit at the house who's starting to get grumpy and starting to cuss, they are seemingly upset about something that they have said or done, I would say. But people are starting to understand that that's more grumpiness than demonic. It's less of the jump now than it used to be, I'd like to think. But we've just really tried to put some good safeguards in place to protect it as best as we can, because that's the most important thing.
What if, and I know it's really not a question so much for you as it would be for the owner, Jacqueline.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the tactical action if, in fact, someone came in there and, let's say, energy, timing, connection, whatever it may be, that one of them has an experience similar to a Carolyn Perrin, and are lifted up and cast across the room something so profound in front of other witnesses that are in there too? Is it just a point to be able to say to individuals, as and if that happens? Obviously, the person that it happens to is going to be hysterical for quite a bit of time, but the others as well. This is a rare occurrence. This hasn't happened before. How do you approach that to quell any fear of, this is, we're going to run out of the house now because this is terrifying?
Right. Well, I mean, I think, and we tell this to people in tours, and I do think this is very important. We do believe that the house matches energy. So we do firmly believe that what you bring on the property is what you will get back. We know the spirits have mentioned that it's very important to them that people set their intention before they walk on the property. We know that they prepare for every guest. They know who you are before you get here. They know what your intention is, but they want you to set it as well. So we kind of joke like it's, you know, like when we're prepping for the day and looking who's on the books for the day, are they doing the same thing? You know, like checking out who's good, who's bad, you know. And we have seen situations where, you know, somebody comes in all puffed up, wants to be tough guy or tough woman and get smart and get mouthy. And we've seen people leave the house. We've seen people get scratched because, again, we have to remember that this was their house first. It is still their house. It will always be their house. I think the humans who are involved are Jacqueline owns the place. But I think we would all be considered good stewards of the house, and we're temporary. They're permanent. And I think if people don't remember that, then that's a terrible mistake on their part. And we have a coffee mug that says, "Don't F with us, we'll F with you." And that's there for a reason. So we always mention, if you come in here kind, you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to experience what this house really is about. People tend to have a great time. In all the tours I've done and all the times I've spent here, I've never seen anything like that happen. I haven't actually heard that happen in a long time. But again, I think it's all about your intention when you set foot on the property.
Yeah.
And if it's not great, then I think the spirits can take care of that if they don't like it. And or if we find somebody being disrespectful, we have the option to remove them. Yeah. Whatever we have to do to take care of them is what's important to us.
Well, Conjuring House going through a little bit of a paradigm shift, and talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But last week, had Sharon Coyle on.
Mm-hmm.
We love Sharon from Rolling Hills.
Yep.
And Dan Class joined us. So Sharon seems to take more of a tack like you do.
Yeah.
Where it's like, there are parameters that I'm going to set there.
Right.
My place, my rules. Dan is a little more open. If you want to bring Ouija boards in there, that's fine. If you want to approach things from a more, not necessarily provocative, but maybe a little bit more aggressive. I mean, he's fine with that.
Yeah.
So every place has its own energy, and it has its own relationship with the stewards and the guests and everything like that. It takes a little bit of time.
It does.
To establish that, and it can be easily undone by pop culture or popular opinion or something like that. So you have to be vigilant.
You do.
If this is the way that you want the place approached, then you have to take a position. You have to take a stand on it. And it doesn't necessarily mean people can't have a good time.
Of course.
It's not active or anything like that. So every place is a little bit different.
I agree. And I think in watching, I know for Sharon, I know she was, like a lot of people, she says a lot of people don't like her because she's tough. And I think for us, it's like, we aren't going to, kowtow is not the right word, but I guess that's the one I'll use, to the masses, because as important as the public is to come here, our responsibility lies with these spirits, this house, this property. So whatever Jacqueline or the staff deem is best for that place is what we're going to do. And of course, this house is a bit unique in the fact that you've got 8 generations of one family that lived here. And I think in colonial times, that's probably somewhat not super common to have that many generations of the family. And, so I think we have to remember that these are people that are still here. They're still working the property. We've had them tell us that they can't talk to us anymore, that they have to go back to work. Right. But I don't think personally, like, I don't have an issue with, how some, like Dan obviously is a good example because it's just a completely different setup. And he's coming more from like the research is important to us, but he's going like full bore research to figure, because there's so much going on at that place too, but there's a lot more, I think, unknowns there than what we have here. Sure. You also have a lot more darkness, I think, there than we have here. And I think the fact that we've spent a lot of time trying to really bring out the positive and the the beauty in this place and those spirits. And
Right.
sure, can it be startling? Can it be a bit unnerving at night? Yeah, absolutely. It's a 350-year-old house in the middle of the, basically in the rural part of Rhode Island. And it's very dark out here. But I think because of the very much concerted effort to focus on who's here, try to discover who's here, what their stories are, things like that, we are slowly shifting that narrative in doing those things, doing the tours, really trying to explain the history, explain the connection, explain the spirits that we know and the history that we've been able to find about them. And I think it makes people have a much more personal connection to the spirits in the house. And that I think is what's the most important to us, because you can find people. I had a lady the other day, she was absolutely terrified. And after the tour, she pulled me aside and we talked for a couple minutes and then she felt much better, but she had movie mindset, which is okay. But that's also why we're here, is to help people understand and feel a little bit better about things and, talk about our experiences and things that we've seen. And I'm pretty sure just about everybody on staff could write their own book of experiences.
Right.
But I think a lot of us keep those to ourselves because for some of us, that's really personal for us. Right. And I think we are trying to lead by example there. Right. You don't see a lot of us going out and blabbing about this, that, and the other at the farm or,
Right.
any of that. We're really trying to be respectful all the time of this house, whether we're in the house or not. And for me, I'm in Florida most of the time. And so I still take it very seriously in protecting them from where I can from a computer end of things. But I think it's shifting. I mean, you've been here a lot. You've spent a lot of time here. And I think, all of the staff well enough to know that everybody is really passionate about this place. And I think the house sort of chooses you, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's the natural evolution of the place, because the three places we're talking about, Rolling Hills, Conjuring House, Hinsdale House, different approaches, but all three have a commonality in that there's a dark history behind all of them, whether that's
Yes.
the parents, whether it's the family who lived at Hinsdale House,
Right.
or whether it's the treatment of people at Rolling Hills Asylum when it was a poorhouse. So they have that dark history, but eventually, light wins.
Right.
Love wins.
Yes.
And there's an evolution in those type of places,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to get into a different type of thing, but I want to ask you first. We've had some very, very basic conversations about what we might see. And I want you to tell people what your thoughts are. What are you thinking of in terms of offering something on our Patreon account directly from you? People love to hear what you have to say, love to talk to you. So tell us a little bit about what may happen as you kind of, you're still putting it together.
Kind of noodling around on it. Well, first, I was honored to be asked to do that. I think in my experiences here, I think it's important for people to have a good basis in grounding and protection. So I'm sure we'll hit on some of that. Probably discussing Reiki, the benefits of that, and how you can sort of work with your body to start learning how to heal itself. So mine will probably be mostly energy related, just because that's really the lane I'm comfortable in. As all of you know, I am not an investigator. I've still not investigated the Conjuring House as many nights as I've stayed here. It's I think for people, a lot of times they come in, and especially to a place like the three places we're discussing, right? Hinsdale, Rolling Hills, and Conjuring House, where it's very important energetically to understand the basis of grounding and protecting your energy. And it's not because you're doing that to protect yourself from being spiritually attacked, but you come on a place like this, you've got this much history. Then you also pack in, all the people that come here, the fans, the energy. It's just a lot of energy to constantly be taking in. So to kind of help people formulate a basis of how to sort of simply navigate that when they're going to different locations and things like that. But that's probably where I'll start. I think that's a good one.
Well, it's a most asked question of some of the guests we have on, whether they're investigators or they're people of the cloth. Michelle Belanger gets that, all the time. It's like, how do you set yourself up for emotionally, psychologically, mentally, spiritually?
Right.
So this is something that is a common topic on this show. You know, some people, I don't want to say rituals, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's kind of a ritual. A ritual is something that's repetitive that you go to. I don't necessarily have one, someone else does. So there's no right answer on it. But if
Right.
you're of that mind that going into a place, or even in your, listen, even in your everyday life, when you wake up in the morning, whether you're a ghost hunter or not,
Yep.
it's just setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, it's living. I mean, I always tell clients, and we do a lot of things to quote unquote better ourselves. But I think the biggest key on that is living with intention in everything you do. You start assigning intention to things, and it's amazing how quickly things can shift or change. And I think that's important too, because I think a lot of us kind of go through life, we're just kind of like going through the motions or whatever. And I think when you start really thinking about what you're trying to accomplish and what your intentions are, you're just putting that kind of vibration out to the universe. And that gives you some direction, right? So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. So yeah, that'll probably be the sort of the angle that I take on those, I think.
Okay. I want to get into something here, and there's some questions. So I want to get to some questions because, well, we'll go about this as it evolves. So the first one from Android: has the trespassing gotten a lot worse since Sam and Colby's show?
Yes, absolutely.
In a word.
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, most people are pretty nice about it. Like, we understand that people want to see the place. The biggest problem is that people don't understand is Round Top Road is a very, it's a rural road, but people drive like crazy people down this road. I mean, there's times when we can hear a motorcycle go by, but you don't see it on the surveillance camera because it's going so quickly. So if your car's parked in front of the house, you're going to get hit, so it's a safety thing. And I think people also have to remember this is still private property. And our tours are only $25. If you do a tour, you can take as many pictures as you want from inside the house, outside the house, down at the bridge, down at the, wherever you want to be. Right. We just ask people to go about it the right way, But well, yes, they've gotten much worse.
This is a spike in things. We've seen this before.
Oh, for
10
sure.
years ago when the movie came out.
Yeah.
You weren't on the scene then. I was under different ownership. We saw what happened. So, of course, that spikes again, because for some people, this is like the first time.
Very, very true.
We look at it like, but
right.
It's something different.
Yeah.
Second question up: Elia Estrada, do Cody and Satori still stay
there? They're on a break right now, as most of you know. Oh, sorry, I'm adjusting. Cody had his second hip replacement surgery recently, so he is in recovery mode at the moment. I saw him at your house, obviously, and he's doing great. He's getting mobile again. But I think too, for those two, it's been such a crazy couple of months with all of the different, videos coming out and exposure, and that's a whole other story. But I think for them, they're using this break also to kind of decompress, kind of celebrate the fact that they got engaged and just be normal people for a little bit before diving back in. So they're not here right now, but they will be back. We do know that. Yeah.
Are they still doing things? Yes. They were with us this weekend at an investigation in Maine.
Yep.
Are they still part of what we do? Yes, they are. So they haven't left the field. They haven't, they are just doing things on their terms right now. And a lot of it is because of the climate out there, because there's enough oxygen being given to people, and it doesn't have to come from us. A quick comment on this weekend, and I'm not going to, maybe as time goes on, we'll talk a little bit more about this. But over the weekend, we took an opportunity Saturday afternoon. Some of our group, we mentioned this at the top of the show, went out on the railway cog at Mount Washington. Amazing. You're literally getting pushed up by a train up the highest peak in New England.
I saw that picture.
So 5 of us decided that we were going to stay behind. Cody obviously wasn't going to do that because, we just get jostled. He didn't need that. So we wanted to, hang out. And we started experimenting with some things. And like most of the discoveries that are made of any significance, sometimes they're completely by accident or it takes a different direction from what you intended. So I feel strongly that a code might have been cracked
This is
in
amazing.
this whole thing. And I'm not totally prepared to give you chapter and verse about it yet because, like anything else, you start slow.
Yeah.
So we want to do more with this, but it was remarkable. And understand that at the point when you're dealing with the paranormal, you're doing something with the paranormal. It's not always, is there a man or a woman here? Give me knocks,
Right.
move something. We weren't doing that. We were experimenting above and beyond that. Just we wanted to try some things. This is how you move the field forward. It isn't always putting your recorder and camera down and waiting for like a shadow figure to come.
Right.
And we feel strongly that, again, there may have been a code that's cracked on this. And I'll probably at our town hall tomorrow night talk a little bit more about this. I'm not ready to say it's a done deal because there's more we have to do. In my mind, we have to do it at a different location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a breakthrough, to say the least, and it is an
Well,
astounding breakthrough. We just,
I
again,
am-
repetition is skill.
I'm just going to say this and not get into the weeds, but the fact remains that my wife and I were able to do this
Oh,
with this method.
interesting.
We think that this is not magical or mystical. It certainly is not a goddamn hoax. Okay.
It's
There may
actually,
be,
it's science, right? It's science.
there may not be, there may be, I use the term rational hesitatingly because there's nothing rational about this, but it may have something to do with physiology and what people possess. And
Right.
I'm not trying to hit you up for the Patreon thing, but I will probably talk about this a little bit more in a private session
Sure.
tomorrow night.
Oh yeah. I'm
but
gonna
I
be
think-
doing that anyway. I just had enough chance to. I barely even ate dinner today, so
Yeah,
I know. I'm like, I gotta get on that. I gotta get on that.
I just think it's important to tell people that this may not be what they think or what a lot of people hope it is. And we've been barking up this tree for months now. So we decided to do something a little bit more
I love
with
it.
this. Introducing variables, i.e., other people, into this thing. So there's much more to it, but I'm not really willing to, break it down. We did this and then we did that and we use this and we use that because it's just going to, and by saying this, I know I'm piquing people's curiosity. I apologize in advance, but we're not ready.
Yeah.
It started with an idea with a small group of people, and then everybody contributed to it intellectually and civilly and asked each other questions and challenged each other and said, what if? And that's the way these things are supposed to be, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. So with that being said about the Cody and Satori thing, there are still things going on out there. And we're still asking questions. We're asking them in the right way.
Right.
I don't get up in the morning and like the object of my day is going to be I think I'm just going to hate on somebody today. I mean, come on, man. You got to make some lifestyle choices on that.
Agreed.
George, we can continue on with these questions. I mean, Android, more activity being there alone. If so, do you think they're just being more active when someone is alone, or are you just more aware? How's that work?
That's a good question. And honestly, I wish I could. I just came into the staff quarters this afternoon, so everybody has been here up until about 5 o'clock today. So, and again, we have a group here, so I won't actually be alone until tomorrow. But I'm curious as well. I mean, I did notice, this time I'm not the shiny new penny anymore. The first time I was there in the camper, the banging, it was just constant because it's like, ooh, new person, and I think now it's more old hat. But I think also they do, at one point last year, they came through and spelled out, and most of my dog Bernie does not do well up here. They spelled out, we all want to help Bernie. And I think they know how twitchy he is about being here because he can see them. And I think they kind of throttle back what we experience for his sake, which I find a bit interesting. And I mean, you'll hear some things here and there, knocks or, stuff like that. I saw Shadow today and heard some footsteps and things like that. But I do think for me, the intention setting is so important before I go there so that they know exactly what my plan is when I'm there, right? Every time. And I do it for like 2 weeks before I get here. And then I tossed Bean in right before we got here, just saying, hey.
Is that part of the master plan? Is that?
Well, but I kind of look at it as like, if I'm going to be in somebody's house for 10 days, right? Like, I think I owe it to them to kind of explain what my function is, right? And I think for me, it's showing them a level of respect that they deserve. And I do think that is returned. I also think my energy, I don't bring anything threatening to the table. Yeah. Like I don't investigate. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just here to help take care of the place and do what I can to represent the house as best that I can. So I don't feel like, I would like to have some activity and just kind of see what that's like alone. Yeah. But I think the spirits and I seem to have struck a pretty good balance. But I could have a very different story in a couple of days. It might go nuts tomorrow because I'm here alone, right. Just because it's like, oh, she's here. Let's have some, you know what I mean? But it's not from like a scary perspective. But I can always report back when I get back to Florida because I'll be here through Friday. And most of that will be by myself. So I could have a very different story by the end of the week. But right. At this stage, it's just been nice and quiet. And
I got in the times that you've been there, and you've been there enough now, I'm going to have a variation of Jeff's question. Mm-hmm. More spirits showing up due to the attraction of investigators, like when they know that there's going to be an investigation that night, more of them come to be heard. I'm going to do a variation on that. Well, this can be a two-part question. Is there any change in activity after investigators leave? And if so, I'm trying not to make this complicated. If so, do the intention of the I don't know if you have this much data. Do the intention, a specific type of approach, elicit more post activity than others?
I'm probably not the best one to answer that, only because I'm here the least amount of time.
That's kind of unfair because you have your.
Well, not that. Well, but we spend a lot of like when I'm here in the mornings. When everybody leaves, we're up cleaning the house. I've never had any issues or heard anything weird.
I've never seen a broom like going by itself at this point. So no.
No, we've had some fun stuff in the kitchen as of late. The dining, all the frankincense and myrrh that's hanging up in the ceilings.
Right.
We were noticing this weekend, as soon as we mention that, they start, there's only 2 of them and it's the same 2 every time. They will move, but they don't, like if it was a draft, obviously it would be more of a swinging motion. They will rotate, switch directions. And then there was a gentleman standing in front of it. Like we had these silver kind of wall mounted candle holders and the candle holder was swinging. But I think, Ken, you and I have talked about this. I think more than the investigators, I think we're at a point now where we're learning, like we've discussed about the kinds of things we're learning now and the level of things that we're learning. I feel like because people are more focused on learning about the place the right way, when people see something happen in the house and they call it out, we're starting to notice that maybe the spirits are doing it again to kind of help us validate what we're seeing. Like they're trying to help us notice things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
I
It's just, I don't know if jackassery elicits a one type of post investigation response, and a friendly, respectful, maybe even funny light with lots of laughter and everybody's having fun and a good time with each other elicits a different type of post investigation response, especially for the staff there that after they leave may end up spending the night or something,
right.
More noisy, less noisy. That would be probably a great question for
Cody
Reed
Satori,
Satori that have spent, countless hours in the staff room, or Jacqueline herself maybe, or someone like that.
Yeah. I will say, to Jeff's point though, I think more than investigators, I think a lot of this has to do with Cody and Satori. I think what's happening now seemingly is that you're getting more people who are coming to investigate the house. More of their people are coming here spirit wise. And I think that's because two parts. One, the energy here is incredibly intense. So any kind of energy that they have, I would believe, is magnified and amplified. And then I also think they now understand that based on what Cody and Satori can do, I think you're starting to have more people. I mean, we've seen it on investigations with Rise Up, where families are coming, spirit are coming to see a family member in, like at Pain House or here or whatever. So I don't know if it's necessarily so much investigator related. And I think a lot of that is probably due to the fact that we've got a pretty serious, intense list of rules of things you can and cannot do here. And I think that kind of tones down the behavior, if that makes sense. Just to try to, again, the end of the day, it's all about protecting them. That's it. And whatever that takes from us, we will do.
Quick question that I have, Ken, because I know we got more in there with the 10 minutes left, but I'm curious if this has been brought up before with us on the show. I don't remember us asking this, but has any team come in, or even the staff decided at any time to do the clapping game?
We are actually starting to see people doing that. Actually, Colin Brown with the Paranormal Files just did that. They did an 18-minute video. We're starting to see more people doing the clapping. And of course, the clapping is a Hollywood invention. That was not a Perrin thing. But they...
Hey, shout out just Aaron for, and we watched it together.
Yeah, we did.
Shout out to Colin Brown for his approach on his return to the Conjuring house. It was...
well done.
Yeah.
Very well done. Good. Yeah, he texted me. He texted me after it aired. I think it was 2 days ago, and he said that people seemed to really like it, and he thought that might be because it wasn't a demon focus. It was focused on what's actually happening here, right? You can get just as many clicks and likes representing a place accurately as you can. Ken, better than anyone. You don't need the demons here. We have enough activity without it, and it's, you get out of it, I think, what you put into it here. But again, for someone who was not in this field 3 years ago at all, and if you'd have told me I'd be working at this house 4 years ago, I'd have told you to F right off because I don't do horror films.
Hey, you and me both.
Right. But this place has changed my life. I mean, enough to where I've got the coordinates of it on my arm now because it has changed my life on so many different levels. And I'll always be grateful for this place. I mean, it's just blown my mind more times than I can count. But I think it's all been because they're trying to help me grow too. So I think if I always come in with that perspective, that I'm a student of this house, I will always be a student of this house. And I think that appeals to them so that they can teach me what they want to teach me or show me what they want to show me. Hey. So I will always be a student of this house. And that's my perspective.
All right. We got about 5 minutes. So let's do the, Android. Colin did a pretty good job.
His channel is called the Paranormal Files.
Changed the narrative a little bit, went through the numbers. We got about 5 minutes or 4. Let's try to get through these quick. Reiki
Yes.
healing amplified by doing it in certain energetic locations rather
Yep.
than, my office here.
Yes, I do. That gives, as a Reiki person, we're not channeling my energy. I'm basically like a copper battery, for lack of a better phrase, or copper tube. So I'm channeling it. For me, I typically am channeling galactic energy. So yes, I absolutely think in a place like this with the aquifer under the house, all the stone, all the spirits, I do absolutely think can be more effective based on the location that you're at. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, Sarah, require a lot of energetic cleanup over time, or is that lessened a little bit over time?
I don't know that there's a lot of energetic cleanup that gets done here. I mean, I think really the house adjusts to what walks in. It's not like you have to get the house cleansed once a month or anything like that. I think it really, in shifting the focus of what the house actually means, I think it sort of automatically kind of does that itself, but it's all about what you bring into this house.
Right.
My
Don't hate on me when I say that I'm like this with the energetic cleanup thing, because I'm also the guy that, hey, I am who I am. I'm a little more objective, not cynical, but if that's your thing, that's fine. And finally, one last question from Ron: is there a Harold at the house?
I'm not familiar with a Harold at the house, but I do have a funny Harold story about we picked up a hitchhiking ghost in my condo named Harold who came to visit, who just needed a ride to the fort.
Well,
that's the only Harold I know. We took him to the fort. My friend Standy took him to the fort and dropped him off. So he's never been back. That's the only Harold I know.
Hey, Harold, if you're listening, hello to you.
And Aaron, we are certainly hopeful that you get a chance to join us tomorrow night on our Patreon Town Hall. It's starting at 8 p.m. So hopefully you're.
Oh, and George, I'm going to be sending out the link. If you're in chat and you're a member, all the members by tomorrow. I was just away for the weekend. Normally I do this ahead of time. You'll get the link to the studio tomorrow. Promise.
Fantastic. That's it for all of us here. I want to thank again Tim Weisberg for joining us in the first hour, and of course, a lovely Aaron Bush for the second hour. We will see those of you who are Patreon members tomorrow night live at 8 p.m. in our town hall. And the rest of you, we will see next Sunday night, once again at 8 p.m., or you'll be hearing us on kgradb.com. Thanks, you guys, so much. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you again real soon. Until then, take care, have a good week, and good night.